The Committee on Science, Space, and Technology will come to order. Without objection, the chair is authorized to declare recess of the committee at any time pursuant to Committee Rule 2F and House Rule 11. Any requested votes will be postponed. Today we meet to consider H.R. 8613, the NSF and USDA Interagency Research Act, and H.R. 8665, the Supercritical Geothermal Research and Development Act, and H.R. 8673, Expanding Partnerships for Innovation and Competitiveness Act, as well as H.R. 8674, Milestones for Advanced Nuclear Fuel Act. I now recognize myself for an opening statement. Thank you all for joining us at this markup where we'll consider 2 energy bills and 2 research and technology bills. Before we begin, I'd like to introduce the newest member of the committee, member of Congress, I should say, and our committee, Representative Fong from California. He will be serving on our Environment and Oversight subcommittees, and please join us in welcoming him to the committee. The first item on our agenda today is a bill to strengthen the cooperation between the National Science Foundation and the Department of Agriculture. And I'm proud to sponsor this bill along with Representative Salinas to improve our ability to conduct critical agricultural research. The NSF and USDA both have unique capacities when it comes to supporting cutting-edge research. NSF has a tremendous research infrastructure and a proven history of supporting scientific breakthroughs. And USDA has world-leading agricultural scientists and a deep familiarity with the challenges facing our farmers. By improving collaboration between these 2 agencies, we can ensure innovative solutions to support our domestic food supply. As a farmer and rancher myself, I'm well aware of the value of technological innovations in improving how we produce our crops. I'm excited for the possibilities that will come from this new collaboration between the NSF and USDA. Next, we'll consider the Supercritical Geothermal Research and Development Act, another bill sponsored by myself and Representative Salinas. This bill will expand research at the Department of Energy to help develop supercritical geothermal energy. Unlike traditional geothermal, this power source involves drilling deep into the ground and taking advantage of high temperatures there. I'm from a state with a strong geothermal industry. I know the power of this clean energy source, and I value it as a part of the all-of-the-above American energy strategy. But right now, geothermal energy is confined to a few states that have the right geography to assess this energy. By developing enhanced geothermal systems, we can expand this power source across the United States. We can also make it a baseload energy source that can power entire city grids. This bill will help us do that by establishing a program with DOE's Geothermal Technologies Office to focus on supercritical geothermal research. It also expands the Frontier Observatory for Research in Geothermal Energy program to include supercritical geothermal. Lastly, it improves public-private partnerships with geothermal research and expands collaboration between DOE and the Department of Interior to better understand and locate geothermal sources. I'd like to thank Representative Salinas for joining me as a co-sponsor of this bill. The next bill is the Expanding Partnerships for Innovation and Competitiveness Act, or the EPIC Act. This bill will establish a foundation for standards in meteorology at the National Institute of Standards and Technology. This nonprofit organization will help NIST partner with the private sector to improve technological standards and advance NIST's work on emerging technologies. This is a successful model we've already seen used on other research organizations like DOE and the National Institutes of Health. NIST's work has always been foundational to U.S. industry, but today, with their work on artificial intelligence and quantum sciences, NIST has never been more vital to our competitiveness. It's critical that we commercialize and capitalize on this work, and this bill helps us do just that. A NIST foundation will improve external partnerships and provide access to private and nonprofit capital. And I'd like to thank Representative Stevens and Representative Obernolte for their leadership and thoughtfulness in developing this legislation. The last bill we'll consider today is the Milestones for Advanced Nuclear Fuel Act, sponsored by Representatives Williams and co-sponsored by Representative Sorensen. For decades, we've relied on Russia to supply the enriched uranium necessary to power nuclear reactors. The U.S. has very little capacity to produce nuclear fuel and none at all when it comes to the fuel necessary to power the next generation reactors. Any clean energy future must include nuclear power. It is reliable, affordable, and zero emission. So we need to be serious about developing an American supply of nuclear fuel. This bill will help us get there. It establishes a milestone-based framework for the development and demonstration of nuclear fuel projects. This approach, where funding is contingent on hitting strategic milestones along the way, ensures that our tax dollars are being spent efficiently and that we're getting real results from our investments. It's a smart, practical bill, and I want to thank Representatives Williams and Sorensen for their work on it. I believe we have a solid roster of legislation before us today, and I am anticipating a productive markup. I appreciate all the bipartisan work that's gone into these bills, and I look forward to passing them today. With that, I now recognize the ranking member, Ms. Lofgren, for her opening statement.
Thank you, Chairman Lucas. As you've mentioned, these are 4 good bipartisan bills that we're taking up today. First bill, NSF and USDA Interagency Research Act, sponsored by yourself and Representative Salinas, is actually an important one for my constituency. The Salinas Valley in my district is considered the salad bowl of the world. It earned that title for growing roughly 70% of the nation's lettuce. Salinas Valley is a community that has and can continue to benefit from advances in agricultural technologies and increased resilience to climate change. H.R. 8613 will serve that end by helping facilitate the collaboration between the world-class research enterprise enabled by the National Science Foundation and the USDA's expertise in agricultural services and partnering with farmers through the Extension Service. I enthusiastically support this bill. I thank my colleagues for their leadership on this critical issue, and I believe both sides of the aisle have worked out whatever issues there are, and there's unanimity in terms of passage. The next bill, also sponsored by yourself, Mr. Chairman, and Representative Salinas, the Supercritical Geothermal Research and Development Act, is an important one. Supercritical geothermal technologies operate in extreme conditions, deeper into the Earth's crust than conventional systems in order to access rock formations at fantastically high temperatures. What sets supercritical geothermal apart from conventional geothermal systems is that it frees geothermal energy from what have, until now, been geographic restraints, and it supercharges its potential output. This technology would result in geothermal systems that are deployable virtually anywhere in the United States and that have the capacity to produce an estimated 90 gigawatts of electricity across the nation. This bill directs DOE to focus on solving the current challenges facing this technology and delivering this resource to market so that it can make a meaningful contribution to addressing the climate crisis. The Expanding Partnerships for Innovation and Competitiveness Act, or EPIC Act, establishes the nonprofit foundation that would support NIST. We all know how important NIST is. At the same time, the agency has faced steep budget cuts, failing infrastructure, and accordingly, declining staff morale. We have to fully resource the agency to carry out its critical resources efficiently and effectively. This bill will help complement NIST activities and funding to help it fulfill its growing mission. We have models for this, as the chairman has mentioned, including the NIH Foundation. Now is time to fully enable NIST as well, and I thank Representatives Stevens and Obernolte for this thoughtful bill. And the last is the Milestones for Advanced Nuclear Fuel Act, sponsored by Representatives Williams and Sorensen. This bill directs the Department of Energy to use a milestone-based approach to accelerate the development and demonstration of technologies that produce nuclear fuels that will be essential to the next generation of advanced reactors. We know that the milestone approach works. Companies only receive federal funding after reaching agreed-upon technical milestones, and this flexible approach accelerates the transition of new technologies from the lab to the market while maintaining good stewardship of taxpayer dollars. It's currently being utilized in the Department of Energy's Fusion Energy program to great effect. At a White House event just last week, DOE announced milestone agreements with all 8 innovative fusion companies that it selected last year, and I certainly see value in applying that promising model to the development of other critical clean energy technologies like advanced nuclear fuels. This bill will do just that. I support all of these bills. It's my understanding that all of the amendments have been the subject of discussion between the majority and minority, and that there is agreement on all of them. I look forward to a successful and speedy markup. And I yield back, Mr. Chairman.
A very meritorious goal, Ranking Member. Ranking Member yields back. Other members are invited to submit their opening statements for the record. Pursuant to the notice, I now call up H.R. 8613, the NSF and USDA Interagency Research Act. The clerk will report the bill.
H.R. 8613, to direct the Secretary of Agriculture and the Director of the National Science Foundation to carry out cross-cutting and collaborative research and development activities focused on the joint advancement of Department of Agriculture and National Science Foundation mission requirements and priorities, and for other purposes.
Without objection, the bill is considered as read and open for amendment at any point. I now recognize myself to speak on the underlying bill for 5 minutes. Oklahoma has a long history of adopting new technologies in farming and conservation. In the early 20th century, we witnessed the introduction of mechanized farming equipment, such as tractors and combines. During the 1950s, advances in crop breeding, fertilizers, and pesticides were adopted, significantly boosting crop yields and resilience for our farmers. Today, we're seeing the adoption of new technologies like drones, equipped with multispectral cameras, and soil and crop sensors to provide real-time monitoring of crop health, soil moisture, soil health, nutrient levels, or automated machinery like autonomous tractors and robotic harvesters that provide labor cost savings up to 90% and enhanced operational precision. The development and adoption of these innovations ensures the United States agricultural sectors remain resilient and productive. With agriculture contributing over 5% of the nation's annual GDP and $7 billion to Oklahoma's economy alone, these technological advances must continue not only for our state, but for all who rely on our nation's agricultural industry. That's why I introduced H.R. 8613, the NSF and USDA Interagency Research Act. This legislation will bolster our nation's agricultural research by enabling collaboration between the United States Department of Agriculture and the National Science Foundation. This bill will enable our agricultural sector to better leverage cutting-edge technologies to address the pressing challenges of food security and sustainable farming practices. My bill does this by uniting USDA's deep-rooted expertise in agricultural sciences and farmer engagement with the NSF's research infrastructure and technology development tools. Historically, when the NSF and USDA collaborate, they accomplish great feats. The NSF Plant Biotic Interactions Program, for example, improves crop resilience through the exploration of molecular and ecological mechanisms of plant interactions. Additionally, joint efforts with the Cyber Physical Systems Program and the National Robotics Initiative focus on smart farming technologies and agricultural robotics, enhancing efficiency and precision. These partnerships exemplify the efforts of the NSF and USDA to drive innovation in agriculture. By expanding research collaborations like these, we can pave the way for a thriving, technologically advanced agricultural landscape that meets the needs of our growing population while protecting our precious natural resources. And I want to thank my colleague from Oregon, Ms. Salinas, for co-sponsoring this bill and working in a bipartisan fashion to guide it through the markup today. I urge my colleagues to support this legislation and join me in championing a brighter, more sustainable future for production agriculture. Does any other member wish to speak on the underlying amendment? The gentlelady from Oregon is recognized for 5 minutes.
Thank you, Chairman Lucas, for your partnership on this legislation. We have the privilege of serving together, not just on this committee, but on the Agriculture Committee as well, and I'm grateful we can work together in a bipartisan manner to advance common sense legislation to help our farmers address the many climate challenges they face. This bill will help the National Science Foundation and the Department of Agricultural Research Initiatives build on each other and make sure everyone is rowing in the same direction. Our bill guides NSF and USDA to accelerate research in critical areas like nutrition security and food safety. It also supports the development of advanced sensors, analytics, and other cutting-edge technologies like artificial intelligence for use in agriculture. As our climate changes, farmers increasingly face changing growing seasons, worsening wildfires, and more frequent extreme weather events. This affects consumers too, who have to pay for these disruptions in the form of higher grocery prices. Our bill will accelerate the development of new technologies and tools to help producers manage their costs and adapt to our changing climate. I'm really pleased that this bill also authorizes education and workforce development opportunities centered on agricultural literacy and rural revitalization. This will foster better collaboration between industry, universities, and community colleges to create strong workforce pathways. It also invests in development and dissemination of high-quality agricultural-based science curricula for K-12 students to inspire the next generation of growers and agricultural scientists. Thank you again, Mr. Chairman, and I look forward to working together to get this bill to the floor and passed into law. I yield back.
And I thank my colleague from Oregon for efforts on this bill. Does any other member wish to speak on the underlying bill? The chair recognizes the other gentlelady from Oregon, Ms. Sure, yes, exactly. If there's no further discussion on the underlying bill, we will proceed with amendments in the order listed at the roster.
Mr. Chairman, I have an amendment at the desk.
The only amendment on the roster for this bill is offered by the gentlewoman from Oregon, Ms. Bonamici. The clerk shall report Bonamici Amendment Number 103.
Amendment to 8613, offered by Ms. Bonamici of Oregon.
Without objection, the amendment is considered as read, and the gentlewoman from Oregon is recognized to explain the amendment.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and also Ranking Member Lofgren, and thank you to my friend and colleague, Representative Salinas from Oregon, for your work on this committee and your leadership with Chairman Lucas on this underlying bill. My amendment would add distributed ledger technologies, often referred to as blockchain, as emerging technology focus area for U.S. Department of Agriculture and the National Science Foundation collaborative research. Blockchain has tremendous potential to improve precision, validation, and data management in the agricultural and food sectors by tracing agricultural products through the supply chain and verifying their authenticity. I've heard from farmers in Oregon about the potential that blockchain has to authenticate product certifications that agricultural producers and consumers rely on. By verifying adherence to certification standards, for example, like organics, bio-based markets, and country of origin labeling, farmers can validate their product claims and consumers can have confidence in the goods they buy. This could be especially valuable for supporting current organic farmers and those looking to transition to organic by guaranteeing products that they are using meet USDA standards. The technology also has the potential to strengthen food safety and improve recall effectiveness. For example, in 2016, Walmart piloted a blockchain program for its mango and pork supply chains. They found that it could trace the source of mangoes in a store to their field source in 2.2 seconds. Precise food supply management can help producers target food for removal instead of losing entire stocks, reduce the time it takes to identify sources of foodborne illness, and better protect consumers. It's also important to invest in research to understand the barriers to effectively deploying blockchain in these sectors. Research and development addressing broadband infrastructure and internet access, integration with automatic farming sensors, and supply chain standards for digital platforms are all challenges. And although there are not specific call-outs for organic specialty crop beginning or underserved and urban producers, I hope my colleagues on this committee will work with us to support all types of farmers with this research. Blockchain technology has great potential to improve safety and precision and support our farmers, ranchers, and dairies. Cooperative research between the USDA and NSF will make sure that producers are equipped to succeed. I encourage all of my colleagues to support this amendment, and as I yield back, I request unanimous consent to enter into the record a statement from Pryor Garnett, an organic farmer in Oregon advocating for blockchain technology and its potential to reduce organic fraud. Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and I yield back.
Seeing no request, the request is so ordered. No objection, the request is ordered. Does anyone else wish to be recognized to speak on the amendment? Hearing no others, the question is on agreeing to the Bonamici Amendment 103. All in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. All those opposed say nay. The ayes appear to have it. The ayes appear to have it. The ayes do indeed have it, and the amendment is agreed to. There were no other amendments pre-filed for this bill. Does any member wish to offer an amendment at this time? A reporting quorum being present, I move that the Committee on Science, Space, and Technology report H.R. 8613 as amended to the House with the recommendation the bill be approved. All those in favor signify by saying aye. All those opposed, nay. The ayes appear to have it. The ayes appear to have it. The ayes do indeed have it, and the bill is ordered reported favorably as amended. Pursuant to notice, I now call up H.R. 8665, the Supercritical Geothermal Research and Development Act. The clerk will report the bill.
H.R. 8665, to amend the Energy Independence and Security Act of 2007 to direct research, development, demonstration, and commercial application activities.
Without objection, the bill is considered as read and open for amendment at any point. I now recognize myself to speak on the underlying amendment for 5 minutes. H.R. 8665, the Supercritical Geothermal Research and Development Act, directs the Department of Energy to take the next step in geothermal energy research and development by including a focus on supercritical geothermal and closed-loop geothermal systems in various conditions. Currently, geothermal energy production is geographically limited to the western United States, where heat and groundwater are present near the surface. However, the supercritical geothermal energy and closed-loop systems are not constrained by the same limits. Drilling deeper into the earth and operating at much higher temperatures gives supercritical geothermal the potential to unlock a reliable 24/7 baseload energy source for any grid across the country. The Supercritical Geothermal Research and Development Act not only builds upon existing DOE research, but also utilizes established facilities such as the Frontier Observatory for Research and Geothermal Energy sites. The Forge locations have been a textbook success story in accelerating the commercialization of advanced geothermal technologies. This bill ensures these locations remain focused on the cutting edge of geothermal technologies. H.R. 8665 also directs DOE to establish a next-generation geothermal center of excellence, which would act as a centralized location for research, development, and demonstration projects to be conducted. The center will enable public-private partnerships to address the biggest issues facing the successful commercial integration of geothermal. By doing so, industry partners will be able to leverage the knowledge and experience of the national labs to aid in solving the most complex engineering challenges that comes with deep drilling combined with high temperature and high pressure systems operations. Lastly, this bill encourages the Department of Energy and the Department of Interior to collaborate on addressing a current shortfall in geothermal data mapping. Current data regarding geothermal sources and understanding of substantial conditions lack nationwide uniformity, and with large areas across the United States simply missing any useful geothermal data. For successful commercialization of advanced geothermal to take place in a reasonable time, it's critical the U.S. have up-to-date information that guides our understandings of the geothermal production capacities right under our feet. And I would like, again, to thank Representative Salinas for leading this bill with me. And I urge all my colleagues to support the legislation, which will enable another tool to increase our clean domestic energy production. With that, I yield back the balance of my time. Does any member wish to speak on the underlying bill? The gentlelady from Oregon is recognized for 5 minutes.
Well, thank you again, Chairman Lucas. I'm pleased to collaborate with you on this. One of the most important challenges on the clean energy transition is how to maintain or improve grid reliability and resiliency while also reducing our reliance on fossil fuels. Thanks to incredible technological improvements in recent years, wind and solar are now the cheapest sources of power, while lithium-ion battery prices have dropped to record lows. Nonetheless, these technologies still provide intermittent power, requiring backups so that consumers have the power they need when they need it. Unfortunately, the effects of climate change make it even harder to deliver reliable power. Earlier this year, thousands of Oregonians went without power as extreme cold combined with ice storms created a surge in electricity demand just as the supply of renewable energy was constrained. Geothermal is one of the many emerging energy technologies that promises to deliver clean power without the intermittency of wind or solar. It has the potential to add a valuable new tool to our toolkit in the transition to a reliable, clean energy future. And I'm proud to support this legislation to accelerate the development of next-gen geothermal technologies. Oregon is already a leader in this space, producing the 5th most geothermal electricity in the United States. Oregon Institute of Technology opened Oregon's first geothermal power plant at their Klamath Falls campus. And for 60 years, the school has heated buildings and supplied hot water with geothermal energy. Since 2010, Oregon Tech has also produced geothermal electricity at their Klamath Falls campus. Now, Oregon is leading the charge on next-generation geothermal technologies. Conventional wells are geographically limited. Recently, however, we've seen progress on enhanced geothermal systems that involve digging deeper wells, as the chairman described, and allow us to access the Earth's heat at far more locations. In February, the Department of Energy awarded bipartisan infrastructure law funding to Mazama Energy to demonstrate first-of-its-kind super hot geothermal energy on the western flank of the Newberry volcano in Oregon. This demonstration will help advance the science needed to operate in extreme heat conditions. This supercritical geothermal pushes the envelope, seeking to dig significantly deeper wells, even through rock that was once impenetrable. This causes water to reach extremely high temperatures and enter its supercritical phase, not a gas and not a liquid. This supercritical water holds significantly more energy, increasing the power output of a system by many times and allowing geothermal to play a much larger role in the country's energy mix. More research is needed to better understand and map the availability of geothermal resources across the country, as well as to develop the engineering techniques and materials to effectively drill that deep and maintain those wells. Our bill would support new geothermal research, development, demonstration, and commercialization efforts at DOE to overcome these challenges. Next-generation geothermal energy will be a critical tool in the fight against climate change, providing clean, reliable energy with a smaller footprint than other power sources. I look forward to advancing this legislation to clear a path for broad adoption of next-generation geothermal power. Again, I thank the chairman, and I yield back.
The gentlelady yields back. Does any other member wish to speak on the underlying bill? Seeing no requests for time. There were no other amendments pre-filed to this bill. Does any member wish to offer an amendment at this time? Seeing none. A reporting quorum is present. I move that the Committee on Science, Space, and Technology report H.R. 8665 to the House with the recommendation the bill be approved. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed say no. The ayes appear to have it. The ayes appear to have it. The ayes do indeed have it. The bill is reported favorably. Pursuant to notice, I now call up H.R. 8673, the Expanding Partnerships for Innovation and Competitiveness Act. The clerk will report the bill.
H.R. 8673, to establish the National Institute of Standards and Technology, the Foundation for Standards and Meteorology, and for other purposes.
Without objection, the bill is considered as read and open for amendment at any point. I now recognize the gentlewoman from Michigan, Ms. Stevens, to speak on the underlying bill.
Well, thank you so much, Mr. Chairman, and thank you to our ranking member as well. I am just so delighted alongside all of you today to offer H.R. 8673, the Expanding Partnerships for Innovation and Competitiveness Act, otherwise known as the EPIC Act. And certainly want to recognize Mr. Jay Obernolte from California for collaborating with me on this important and exciting legislation. As we all know, the National Institute of Standards and Technology is a critically and essential agency for U.S. competitiveness through advancing measurement science, standards, and technology. And so to highlight just a few pieces of NIST's expansive mission, NIST helps to validate the safety and function of most objects around us in both homes and in businesses. NIST is central to the development of next-generation materials and design principles across metallurgy, polymer science, and functional materials. And NIST also bolsters our nation's manufacturing strength and capabilities through things like Manufacturing USA and the Manufacturing Extension Partnership. NIST supports U.S. leadership in emerging technologies as well, such as artificial intelligence, quantum, biotech, and robotics. So we often like to say and reflect that NIST is the mighty agency that could, and we know that their work is found in nearly every facet of our lives. And the number one way in which we can continue to bolster innovation and competitiveness abilities is to really reach the appropriations and that have been authorized in the CHIPS and Science Act. And so we have been looking at a green paper that NIST produced on how to maximize taxpayer investments in science. This came out in 2019, and it called out the importance of independent nonprofit foundations for science agencies in advancing their missions. So while we wait for our appropriators to act, we can evaluate this type of approach. Congress has stood up similar nonprofits at the NIH, the CDC, USDA, which we've been talking about here today, as well as, and most recently, the DOE. And these foundations work collaboratively with the respective agencies to facilitate public-private partnerships. They allow private funds to supplement federal funding and increase technology transfer or federally funded R&D. And it's just a proven model, and one that NIST could absolutely benefit from in the face of what we have evaluated on this committee, their significant underfunding, particularly heading into the next budget year. So the legislation before us increases access to private sector and philanthropic funding to supplement these supplement NIST federal activities. It advances innovative partnerships with industry, academia, and civil society organizations. This legislation will also support NIST's current and future workforce, who we care so much about, and this also speeds up technology transfer and application development. So to do this right, we want to ensure integrity and accountability, which this legislation creates several safeguards and requirements to protect against abuse, waste, and fraud. This also includes the creation of guidelines for the foundation's governance, and the bill will put forward ethical bylaws and conflicts of interest standards for the board and the foundation's activities. There are several transparency requirements, including a strategic plan, public financial reports, audit and disclosure requirements, and, of course, a 5-year review by GAO. The bill before us has the endorsement of over 40 organizations, including standards development organizations, institutions of higher education, industry associations and businesses, nonprofit organizations, innovation visionaries, and more. And we also have received support from from 4 former NIST directors. So the demand is clear, and I again want to thank Mr. Olbenerty and for all of you on the committee for considering this very important legislation that will surely move us forward. Thank you, and I yield back.
Gentlelady yields back. As the lead co-sponsor of the bill, Mr. Olden of California, recognized for 5 minutes.
Well, thank you, Mr. Chairman. It's an honor to be the co-lead of H.R. 8673, and I'd like to thank the lead and my friend, Congresswoman Stevens, for being such a stalwart champion on this issue. This bill would establish a nonprofit foundation for the National Institutes of Science and Technology to aid them in their critically important work. As has been mentioned, many other federal entities have nonprofit foundations that serve a similar role. We have one for NIH, we have one for the CDC, but NIST does not have one, and I think it's because the role of NIST, it has a lot less publicity than the role at some of these other agencies. But as the chairman of the House Artificial Intelligence Task Force, I can tell you that NIST will have a critical importance in helping us develop the testing and evaluation standards for detecting malicious uses of AI and informing regulatory decisions about AI over the next several decades. They're already doing very important work on this topic. Last year, they produced what is probably the world's leading risk management framework for artificial intelligence, and they continue to do critically important work in this space. So we need to get them the resources that they require to do a good job. And yet, as we all know, the regulatory environment is very challenging. So taking the step of adding a nonprofit foundation to help them in their work makes complete sense. We are providing a small amount of funding as seed funding for that foundation, but over time, it's going to be a cost saver, not a cost driver. And so this is something I think that is just common sense legislation, and I urge all of my colleagues to join me in supporting it. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I yield back.
Gentleman yields back. As chair, any other members wish to speak on the underlying bill? Ms. Ross from North Carolina is recognized for 5 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I move to strike the last word. Thank you, Chairman Lucas and Ranking Member Lofgren for holding this markup on all of these critically important bills. I'm speaking right now in support of H.R. 8673, the Expanding Partnerships for Innovation and Competitiveness Act, as we all know, introduced by our outstanding colleagues, Representative Stevens and Representative Olpernolte. NIST is essential to the R&D, innovation, funding, and private partnership network. However, as its duties have grown, NIST has encountered more and more financial difficulties. This bipartisan bill will direct NIST to establish an independent nonprofit foundation to support its mission, increasing its R&D activities and providing additional financing. As we've heard, Congress has already approved similar foundations for several other research agencies, including NIH, CDC, USDA, and DOE. And in North Carolina, we appreciate collaboration with all those other foundations and look forward to collaboration with the NIST Foundation. I urge all of my colleagues to support this bipartisan legislation, and I yield back.
Gentlelady yields back. Does any other member wish to speak on the underlying amendment? If there is no further discussion on the underlying amendment, we'll proceed with amendments in the order listed on the roster. The first amendment on the roster is an amendment in the nature of a substitute offered by the gentlewoman from Michigan, Ms. Stevens, and noticed on Monday. The clerk will report the amendment.
No.
Amendment in the nature of a substitute to H.R. 8673, offered
Without
by...
objection, the amendment is considered as read, and I recognize the gentlewoman from Michigan for a very brief 5 minutes to explain the amendment.
Well, thank you, thank you, Mr. Chairman, and I'm pleased to offer this amendment in the nature of the substitute for H.R. 8673. Look, this amendment offers just several administrative and clarifying changes throughout the bill. It will conform the bill text with changes made to NIST statute in the CHIPS and Science Act. The language throughout is also going to strengthen conflict of interest safeguards. We'll also add standard liability language for board members of the foundation. And finally, it also adds language to ensure the foundation is functionally a separate entity from the institute to ensure accountability for taxpayers. Again, this comes with precedent, and it is something that we have seen before, but we want to make sure we get this absolutely right for our friends at NIST. So I urge my colleagues to support, and I yield back.
Gentlelady yields back. Does any other member wish to be recognized to speak on the amendment? Seeing none, is there further discussion on the amendment? Since this is an amendment in the nature of a substitute, we will move to the next amendment on the roster. And the next amendment on the roster for this bill is offered by the gentleman from Florida, Mr. Posey. The clerk shall report Posey Amendment number 75.
Amendment to the amendment in the nature of a substitute to H.R. 8673, offered by Ms.
Without objection, the amendment is considered as read, and the gentleman from Florida is recognized to explain his amendment.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. It's real simple. It will limit any connection between the Foundation for Standards and Meteorology and foreign countries or foreign entities of concern.
Mr. Chairman?
Does the gentleman yield back?
Yes.
Gentleman yields back. The chair now recognizes the ranking member.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I want to thank Mr. Posey for working with us so that the language is precise, and we agree with the goal, and we think this amendment does it, and I agree with this amendment and urge its adoption.
Does any other member wish to speak on the amendment? Seeing none. Hearing no others, the question is now on agreeing to Posey Amendment number 75. All in favor signify by saying aye. All those opposed say no. The ayes appear to have it. The ayes appear to have it. The ayes do indeed have it, and the amendment is agreed to. There were no other amendments pre-filed to the bill. Does any member wish to offer an amendment at this time? Hearing none, there will be a vote on the amendment in the nature of a substitute as amended. All those in favor signify by saying aye. All those opposed, nay. The ayes appear to have it. The ayes appear to have it. The ayes do indeed have it. The amendment is adopted. A reporting quorum being present, I move that the Committee on Science, Space, and Technology report H.R. 8673 as amended to the House with the recommendation the bill be approved. All those in favor signify by saying aye. All those opposed, nay. The ayes appear to have it. The ayes appear to have it. The ayes do indeed have it, and the bill is ordered reported favorably as amended. Pursuant to notice, I now call up H.R. 8674, the Milestones for Advanced Nuclear Fuel Act. The clerk will report the bill.
H.R. 8674, to establish milestone-based development and demonstration projects relating to nuclear fuel and for other purposes.
Without objection, the bill is considered as read and open for amendment at any point. I now recognize the gentleman from New York, Mr. Williams, to speak on the underlying bill.
Thank you, Chairman Lucas, and thank you also to my colleague across the aisle, Mr. Sorensen, a meteorologist. I'm sure there's a joke here. A meteorologist and a submariner walk into a bar and have a conversation about advanced nuclear fuel, and here we go. So often good intentions lead to harmful consequences, and we now have an opportunity to rethink a policy on nuclear fuel. Since the end of the Cold War, the United States has become reliant on Russian nuclear fuel. In the early 1990s, through an agreement known as megatons to megawatts, Russia agreed to dismantle its nuclear arsenal and reprocess its highly enriched uranium. In return, the United States agreed to purchase this fuel and to use it to power our nuclear fleet, meaning our nuclear domestic electric power generation. Although this relationship benefited the entire world by reducing armaments, it is now apparent that this agreement has caused our domestic nuclear fuel industry to slip into irrelevance. Today, the United States has just a handful of conversion, enrichment, and fabrication facilities. Meanwhile, Russia is a dominant player across the nuclear fuel supply chain and controls 44% of the world's uranium enrichment capacity. Their dominance extends to high-assay, low-enriched uranium, known as HALEU, as well. Rosatom, the Russian nuclear state company, is the sole producer of commercial HALEU, which next-generation nuclear reactors, including Gen 3 and Gen 4 small modular reactors, or SMRs, this is the fuel they will depend on. Both of the multi-billion-dollar projects being carried out by the Department of Energy's Advanced Reactor Demonstration Program are reliant on HALEU as fuel sources, and one has indicated they face delays of up to 2 years due to a lack of availability of domestic HALEU for shifting away from Russian suppliers. While there has been recent progress, like the passage of the Nuclear Fuel Security Act and the Russian uranium ban, the domestic U.S. nuclear fuel supply chain has still been slow to innovate and must jumpstart production through new approaches before it's too late. Understanding this, we introduced H.R. 8674, the Milestones for Advanced Nuclear Fuel Act, to further support the reshoring of the nuclear fuel supply chain by encouraging new market entrants, accelerating innovation, and growing domestic nuclear fuel production. Securing our fuel supply chain and supporting the development of advanced nuclear energy will be critical for decreasing energy costs for working families across our country and for rebalancing America's energy strategy toward providing reliable, resilient, and responsible power generation. Through my bill, any development and demonstration project for advanced nuclear fuels will be structured as a milestone-based project. The milestone-based approach means that Department of Energy will work with the awardee to set specific goals, including costs and timelines that must be achieved before full funding is doled out. Specifically, H.R. 8674 directs the Department of Energy to establish a milestone-based development and demonstration program for advanced nuclear fuels that builds on the Nuclear Fuel Security Act's $2.7 billion investment in domestic low-enriched uranium and HALEU production. The Milestones for Advanced Nuclear Fuel Act implements a proven approach to quick and innovative domestic technology development and applies it specifically to advanced nuclear fuels. I particularly want to call out and compliment ARPA-E for its work in this same kind of model. But how do we know this will work? NASA's Commercial Orbital Transportation Services, known as COTS, exemplifies the power of this development model. Please remember, in 2011, Russia controlled 56% of the market for commercial global launch services and provided U.S. orbital services to the International Space Station. Once COTS was established and incentivized, new industry entrants, such as SpaceX, our dependence on Russia and the cost of commercial launch services decreased tremendously. Today, Russia has less than 4% of market share, and the U.S. has developed a robust commercial space industry, all domestic. I believe that my bill has the potential to reinvigorate our domestic fuel industry in the same manner. Although the Department of Energy has authorization via the Energy Act of 2020 to use milestone-based contracts, the current department has been hesitant to shift most awards to this modernized approach. That is why this specific language on advanced nuclear fuel development through milestone-based awards is needed. I would like to thank my colleague again, Mr. Sorensen, for working with me on this important legislation. And at this time, when energy demand across the country is growing exponentially due to the deployment of new artificial intelligence data centers, the reshoring of critical industries like semiconductor manufacturing, and the electrification of our grid, it is vital that we support a robust domestic nuclear industry. With that, I urge all my colleagues to support this legislation, and I yield back my time, Mr. Chairman.
Gentleman yields back. Does any other member wish to speak on the underlying bill? I believe the gentleman from Illinois, Mr. Sorensen, would like to be recognized for 5 minutes.
Thank you, Chairman Lucas, and thank you, Mr. Williams, for introducing this. I'm proud to lead on it with you. Look, nuclear energy is often left out of the clean energy conversation, even though it's one of the largest sources of low-carbon electricity in the world, second to only hydropower. My home state of Illinois generates more electricity from nuclear energy than any other state. More than half of the power used in Illinois comes from nuclear generation. And the state of Illinois has more nuclear power plants than any other state in the country. In my district, my neighbors go to work every day at the Quad Cities nuclear generating station to produce the clean power that I use in my home in Moline. The legislation before us today directs the Department of Energy to carry out a competitive, milestone-based program for the development and demonstration of nuclear fuel projects. Now, this milestone-based approach included in this bill is a tried and tested type that fosters a competitive market within industry while reducing the risks of cost overruns. So technical, financial, and timeline goals must be agreed to and met before a participant is awarded the full amount of a project. These projects will support and improve our supply chain for the nation's next generation of nuclear reactors and radioactive isotope producers. The bill also takes steps to reduce our spent fuel inventory by employing the same milestone-based structure to improve our recycling capability. So the bottom line is this: nuclear energy is good, clean energy. And I believe that this milestone approach will ensure a robust supply chain while meeting the needs of nuclear energy production today and tomorrow. I hope all of my colleagues will support this bill, and I yield back the balance of my time.
Gentleman yields back. The chair recognizes the ranking member for 5 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I just want to commend Mr. Sorensen, as a weatherman, he has a unique understanding of the climate change challenge that we have, and this is an important element of that. And I'd just finally say that all of us have been excited about next-gen nuclear, and we just broke ground, and there will be a new facility with next-gen right away. So that's an important milestone, and I yield back, Mr. Chairman.
Gentlelady yields back. Does any other member wish to speak on the underlying bill? Seeing none, there were no amendments pre-filed for this bill. Does any member wish to offer an amendment at this time? Seeing none, a reporting quorum being present, I move that the Committee on Science, Space, and Technology report H.R. 8674 to the House with a recommendation the bill be approved. Those in favor say aye. Those opposed say nay. The ayes appear to have it. The ayes appear to have it. The ayes do indeed have it, and the bill is ordered, reported favorably. The chair would note that staff will do technical and conforming amendments and will have 10 days for supplemental and additional information for the record. And with that, the markup is adjourned.